Hello and welcome to Darts Now. This is the Grand Slam of Darts preview for 2023, one of the most brutal tournaments on the calendar. I'm joined by Matt. Matt, how are you, first of all?
Yeah, very well. Looking forward to this one. It's always a good fun, this, isn't it, with the groups and the knockout? I mean, a little bit controversial with the makeup of the field, I think. I've seen a few people complaining about the qualification criteria, complaining about the seeding. It is a bit of a funny one to get your head round, when you're trying to work out how everyone qualified and how everyone was seeded. But, it is what it is. And at the end of the day, with the groups and the knockout, that, bar a couple of shocks in the group stage, most of the cream's going to rise to the top. And by the time we get to the quarterfinals, these are some of the best matches you're going to watch all year, aren't they? Because it's long, nice long format, big prizes, big players, and it never disappoints.
Yeah, you mentioned now how people qualify for the tournament. I mean, if you look at, say, maybe Danny Noppert, for example, he had to come through the qualifiers, then he came through the qualifiers, and now he's a seed. But I mean, maybe down the line the PDC will change it. It took many, many years of us asking before they changed the World Cup format to all pairs. So maybe one day. But before we get into it, I do want to mention two giveaways that one we've got going on, one we are doing soon. If you head over to our Twitter at @dartsnow_, all you got to do is like, retweet. You can be in with the chance of winning Gary Anderson's World Championship winning darts. We are not biased towards Gary Anderson on this channel whatsoever. Although when you listen to my predictions, you may not believe that.
Yeah, also, listen to mine as well.
yeah, everyone loves. You can't not love Gary unless you Gavin Price. But hey, enough of that. I'm sure we'll talk about it. Talking about the Grand Slam. Also for the Grand Slam on our YouTube channel, we will have another giveaway, a set of these. If I can get them on camera, Peter Wright gold darts. Everybody loves the gold darts. Even Peter Wright loves the gold darts, whether he chooses to throw them or not. So do keep an eye out for that. And I'm not going to say it yet, but I do know we have very, very special giveaway for the World Championship. So I don't think anyone else has ever done it before. That's all I'm going to say. But I'll leave you in suspense there, and we'll jump straight into it. And Group A, we have the defending champion, Michael Smith, who is... Not only did he win this a couple of months after he won the World Championship, but it's been a bit of a disappointing year. Still goes up as heavy favourite in the group, 2-11. James Wade, who prior to the European Championship last week had gone out the first round in every single major, dropped out the top 16 as well. Well, he remedied that at the European Championship, made the final and goes off as the second favourite for 4-9. Krzysztof Ratajski, who is not quite the player that he was, but he's a very, very dangerous player still. 8-11, and then the huge outsider there, Nathan Gervin, 9-1. I think those are pretty fair odds given what we've seen. I think maybe Michael Smith is maybe too much of a favourite. Actually, it is a format that he does like. He said that to me last year, but he's not at the best of the year, and in this format, it's such a dangerous format. It's just about winning, getting over the line. Anybody in this tournament can average over a ton in a race to 5. Absolutely anybody. Certainly, you can't look at putting any sort of bet on Michael Smith, not at those odds. But to be fair, Krzysztof Ratajski, he's well capable of topping this group. Unfortunately for Nathan Gervin, I am going to side with the book because I don't really give him much of a chance. I think if he can do anything in this group, get one win, it'll be an achievement. But it's going to be very tough for him to get anything out. But I think it's I think any two of those three can come through this group. I do think Smith will do it because I think he will come good at the end of the year. And then, even though James Wade had his great run at the year, I'm still going to go with Krzysztof. I think he's such a dangerous player, and I do think he's going to get the job done in this.
Yeah, well, what we see with James Wade is, he still has it in the locker, doesn't he? And that was a brilliant run at the European Championship. But he also does have a tendency to put in some very flat performances at times, and it can be without, when you're least expecting it, kind of thing. And one way you would describe Krzysztof Ratajski is sort of consistent, very steady, always in and around that 90-something average, and over the best of 5 legs. You wouldn't be surprised if Wade was caught a little bit cold against Krzysztof, and I think that is ultimately, you would expect that to be the game that the most crucial in the group, Wade v Ratajski. You would expect Smith to have too much. But as we say, over 5 legs, first to 5 legs, you just never know. Nathan Gervin, 9-1 to get out of this group isn't, he does look a little bit of a forlorn hope if you're looking just on the form, but we see it every year. There's always one, big outsider in the group who wins their first game, and then suddenly you're banging contention. And, every year as well, we see some of these groups go down to leg difference. So losing a 5-0 compared with a 5-4 is massive in the context of finishing second or third. So if you're going to lose, every leg literally does count at this stage. And, I suppose your Smiths and Wades, they might be looking at Nathan Gervin thinking this is a game I can win 5-0, 5-1. So there's not a lot of pressure on the young man. So maybe he can go and cause a surprise. We've seen he's got talent. He played in the youth final against Josh Rock, and although he come out on the wrong end of it, he's clearly a talented player. So, looking forward to seeing more of him, but you'd be surprised to see Smith not go through. The other two looks a toss-up for me.
Yeah. I was talking to James Wade at the European Championship, and he said he's been struggling to find motivation. Maybe that explains his form in the majors, and maybe dropping out of the top 16 gave him that extra motivation he needed. But it'll be an interesting one just to see how Wade is. But as much as we know the quality Wade's got, and he showed that in abundance at the European Championship, he is also out of the top guys. If there's anyone who's going to drop in a sub 90 average, it is going to be James Wade. So there is opportunities there. And, like you say, if James Wade does drop a performance in like that, there's opportunities there for Nathan Gervin, because he is more than capable of pouncing on those opportunities. And if we look to Group B now, I mean, this is tight. This is tight. I mean, you really could pick any two of the four, to be honest. Clayton, because of his pedigree, does go off as favourite. Made a World Match Play final, is a World Cup winner as well with Garen Price. Now, these also changed, actually, because Chris Dobie was the favourite to go through with Clayton. Rock was a bit of an outsider yesterday. Everything I thought through yesterday before this video went out the window because every odds seemed to have changed. Chris Dobie's been a bit of a breakout year. He made his full Premier League debut, also won the Masters as well. Knocked out Van Gerwen in the quarterfinal of the World Grand Prix. It is a really good year for him, but him and Josh Rock, I know Josh Rock has not had the best of years, but we have to put that into perspective. He's not been on the tour 2 years. There was an awful lot of hype around him, especially last year. Vase Van Gerwen in that sensational match, hit a 9-darter. So I just think he's maybe regressed to his mean, which is still very, very good. And then you look at Barry Van Peer. He's a quality player. We saw he's a bit of a monumental tournament this for him, because we saw his struggles with Dartitis a few years ago for all to see, and he's come through that now, fortunately. And I think what will help him a lot is that he's played an awful lot of modus. He's used to these short formats better than any of these guys. If you ask all of the big guns, they always say, just want to get through the first round. No matter what tournament it is, just get to the stage where the format starts to lengthen. So Barry Van Peer is the outsider in this group, but he's still really, really dangerous.
Yeah, if I'm looking at the outsiders in these 8 groups, I think Berry actually maybe has the best chance of getting through, even though it's such a tough group. I just think he is capable, as you make the point, over the short format, very, very dangerous player. And he's actually played quite a lot of Pro Tours as well this year and done very well. There was a point, I'd probably say he's not quite where he was maybe in April, May of this year, where he was, as good as I'd ever seen him. But he still looks very, very dangerous, very sharp. His treble hittings is phenomenal. And, the problem is that the other 3 lads will be looking at this thinking, okay, these other 2 lads are world-class operators, so I've got to be at my best. And they'll all be looking at that Barry Van Peer game and putting pressure on themselves to win it. And I think that plays into Van Peer's hands really nicely. I think it's a free hit for him. And if he plays anywhere near what we've seen of him this year, then he can definitely win 1 game, maybe even 2, and sneak himself through. However, I wouldn't like to be calling this group at all. It just looks really, really difficult. Like you say, you can make a case for all 4 of them. Johnny Clayton, definitely the most experienced. And for all we question his form, he just finds a way in the early stages of tournaments, doesn't he, to get through time and time again. Chris Dobie, I've been so impressed with him recently. I was hoping he might get a bit of a kinder draw, might have leaned towards him in the outright market, but I think this is a tricky group. I think he could easily top it, or he could finish fourth, and I wouldn't be that surprised. The same applies to Josh Rock as well. So yeah, it's a no bet for me in this group, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how it pans out. And I definitely think Barry Vampire is a dangerous underdog.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to choose a bubble, I would go with the two favourites, Clayton and Chris Dobie, purely because of the 4/2. But yeah, my 50p is firmly remaining in my pocket because, like you said, any two of the four can really get through. And speaking of hard groups to predict, there's always a group of death every single year, and this has to be it. I mean, wow, you've got Luke Humphries, who he won his first major this year, the World Grand Prix. He kicks off favourite. He's the world number 4. He will be in the Premier League next year. Even though he shies away from talking about it. Then you've got Gary Anderson, who absolutely loves this tournament. He's never won this tournament, but he absolutely loves it. To be honest, I think that's where the bit of extra motivation that we've seen from Anderson comes from. I think, in his mind, there's unfinished business. And I think this is it. When I was speaking to him after, at the World Grand Prix, he was saying, yeah, it'd be nice to win this, but the Grand Slam is the one that I'm looking forward to. He's made no secret about that. It's his first PDC tournament, and he really, really wants to get his hands on it, and he's peaking at the right time. Some of his performances this year, the averages 103, 5, 10. This is not just every now and then. It's like consistently, if you look at the Pro Tours, every single match, it's just, and even when he's losing, he's taking an unbelievable performance to beat him. Don't be surprised to see an Anderson 115 average in this tour. If you're looking at first to 5 legs with the way he's been playing, do not be surprised. To be fair, you look at Humphries, Anderson, Dirk van Dijvenbode, anyone can put in a monstrous average. I think the only thing that's going to hold Dirk back is that he's struggling with an injury. He's always had issues with his shoulder. He's always putting deep heat on. James Webb will be hoping not to face him because he got in his eyes the European Championship. But yeah, if you look at Dirk, I think it was like a 75 average against James. It was not good to watch. The action just seemed poor. If he's fit, if he's healthy, or even if he can, if he can take painkillers, get in a deep heat, it's a short format he can get through. European Championship was a bit longer, so maybe just mentally that took its toll. But yeah, he's coming into this with an injury and a shoulder injury as well. And Steve Lennon has had a really poor year. He's probably going to struggle to keep onto his tour card, but he did come through the qualifiers 5-1. To be honest with you, I think with the people in this group, I don't think there's a lot of value in that. Poor Steve Lennon, he's been put in the group of death because if Dirk can find it, then he can batter anyone in this group. And then you've got, in my mind, two of the favourites for the tournament in Luke Humphries and Gary Anderson there.
Yeah, the big name definitely going to fall in this group, as you say. I agree on paper. This is an absolute group of death. But I think you're right to flag Dirk's injury. It just that, if you had to ask me how it's going to go, I would predict Humphries and Anderson, and I would say that Dirk's injury is just going to restrict him a little bit because when we last saw him, he looked in all kinds of pain, didn't he? And he was just, for me, he wasn't even releasing the dart normally, and he was very deliberate with his throw. And I know Dirk doesn't like to. He doesn't like to dwell on it when he has issues. He's quite sort of matter of fact when he speaks. But yeah, it must be killing him because before, I think it all stems back to when he rolled his ankle on stage, doesn't it? That was when
yes.
His first injury, and I just don't think he's ever quite been the same since. There's been flashes, but it's such a shame because in that moment he was probably in the top 4 most exciting players in the world to watch, and you felt like a big one was imminent for him. Now I do feel like he's gone a little bit further away from him. I still would have thought he'd have enough to get through most groups, but yeah, what you say there, Luke Humphries, I mean, to me, right now he's as good as Van Gerwen and Price, and he really is in that caliber. But Gary Anderson in 2023 has the highest average out of anybody. He's averaging 98.8 for the calendar year, which is just ridiculous when you think of the amount of games he's played. To be at that level as your base level is ridiculous, really. And yeah, I mean, I'm getting the vibe that you're going to pick Gary Anderson as your potential winner. I'm certainly, don't want to ruin that part of the show, but he might feature in my calculations as well. I mean, he loves this tournament, like you say. I used to do previews for another YouTube channel, Doubles and Trebles, and I used to always sort of talk up Gary last year as, he would refine his best form if he could just get his head down and practice. And if you asked me 12 months ago, could I pick an event for him to win? It wouldn't be the World Championship. It would have been the Grand Slam. But unfortunately, from a betting perspective, there's no market on the Grand Slam a year in advance. It's only the World Championship. So I have backed him for the World Championship at some hefty prices, but I wish I was backing him for the Grand Slam because, I really, really think it's a big week ahead for Gary, and really excited to see how he goes. I just hope he doesn't put too much pressure on himself. I remember when he first appeared back on the Euro Tour in an actual Euro Tour event earlier in this year, there's so much hype around him being back on the Euro Tour. He put in one of his worst performances of the year. He doesn't need to put too much pressure on himself because it is a short format. He just needs to relax into it, get through the groups, and then we'll see what he can do. Can't wait to see this group.
Speaking of the European Tour as well, Anderson will not have to go to the qualifiers because he is in the seeds for that. So from what he's been saying as well, he's not interested in the Premier League. He's not interested in the World Series. He's interested in the ranking majors, the floor events, and the European Tour events. That is what he says. So
a bit of a turn up for the Bucks, isn't it? That he's interested in the Euros after all those
Europe. So do expect to see Anderson on the European Tour. And just on Dirk as well. Yeah, I mean, you did say that he was one of the most exciting players to watch. When I was in the media room in the European Championship, we was talking about potential Premier League picks, and Dirk's name was mentioned quite a bit. He has won 3 titles on the floor this year. Again, it's just that injury though has derailed him.
I honestly think if he hadn't have picked up the injury problems in the last 2 months, I think he was nailed on for the Premier League with the walk on, the way he plays, the 180s. He's tailor-made for it. But unfortunately, the Dirk of the last 2 months is not the Dirk that we all would love to see back. Hopefully, he bounces back here. But I wouldn't be putting any money on it.
Yeah, like you said, he still might have enough to come through most groups, but this group is just going to be such a difficult ask. And you can't mention the Grand Slam without mentioning Gerwyn Price. He has pretty much owned this tournament for the past, 5 years? He's won 3 since 2018. He's massive favourite to go through in this group, 1 to 8, which, I mean, I don't care who you are. I don't like 1 to 8 in this format with Ed, but, I fully expect him to go through. And then it gets a bit difficult because you got Gian Van Veen and Ryan Searle now. We know the quality of both. Gian Van Veen, it is his debut year, but he's only young. He's 21 years old, but he's probably one of the most mature 21-year-olds you will ever talk to. He's just, his mindset. He just knows it. He knows not to get too ahead of himself. He knows the game. He knows how he needs to improve. He just speaks with such maturity for such a young kid, and he's got such quality as well. We saw that at the European Championship. He dumped out Michael Van Gerwen. And he did well actually because he narrowly missed out on the World Grand Prix, and to get over that disappointment and then to get in the European Championship was really, really good. He'd have been disappointed to lose to James Wade. He was 5-1 up on James Wade, and if he had beaten James Wade, actually, we would have seen Luke Lettler in this tournament as well.
That was a bit of a shame.
Yeah,
plenty more years for Luke.
He would have been really exciting, but one man's loss is another man's game. But yeah, speak of quality, I mean, Ryan Searle, we know we can do it on the floor, but we've seen so many big performances as well on the TV stage. Maybe probably not as consistent as he would like, but if you take world match play, Raymond van Barneveld in the first round, Raymond van Barneveld's return to the Winter Gardens, you're thinking, can the occasion get the better of Ryan Searle because he's involved in that occasion as well? Average 102 performance of the first round, pretty much, and he could just do that over and over and over. He's got such a rhythmic throw that if he's on it, then I don't care what size dart he throws, he can just pepper in those 180s. And again, to be honest, he is another one in this short format. He could post an astronomical average. And then you see there the huge outsider, Nathan Rafferty. Again, I'm going to go with the bookmakers on this one. I don't give him a chance just because if you look at the year that he's had, he came through the qualifiers. Well done for that because there's a lot of good guys in those qualifiers, but he's had a tough year and he has struggled to buy a win sometimes on the Pro Tour. So much needed prize money here, but I think he's going to struggle to get any more.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Nathan Rafferty was in this tournament last year. He got drawn in Michael Van Gerwen's group, and he did manage one win, but finished bottom of the group. And I would argue he was in, considerably better form then than he is now. So I think you can probably say this is a three-runner race. But what a three-runner race as well! Like, it would be simple to say that it'll come down to Jan van Veen's game with Ryan Searle, but they'll both fancy their chances of beating Gerwyn Price over a best of 9, first of 5. Yes, you would expect Price to go through. That's why he's such a skinny Price. But I don't think he's like infallible in this format. And yeah, Van Veen and Searle is a game I really struggle to call. I mean, a lot of people will be surprised to see that Van Veen is actually a slight favourite over Searle. I think that's just, on the recency, with what he did at the European Championship. A lot of buzz around a young player when they come through, like Josh Rock last year. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here, because Ryan Searle's an absolutely class act and a seasoned campaigner, and he won't be flustered if Van Veen starts banging in 140s, 180s. The one thing I would say about Van Veen, I think he's just got the world at his feet. I think he's going to, him and Josh Rock are both future world champions for my money. But I do think at times his doubles can just be a little bit shaky in big moments. And that is what Ryan Searle is normally very good at, isn't it? The top sitting and the finishing in general is normally very neat and tidy. So over a short format, it's who's on it on the night. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit surprised to see Searle a slight outsider, but there's not much in it, and it probably will come down to that game. But yeah, looking forward to this group again. It's another tasty group, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you are going to put any bet on this group, probably the value is going to be Van Veen and Searle to both go through. I mean, Gerwyn Price isn't the Gerwyn Price that we've seen for the past few years. He's not won a ranking major, I think, since this tournament 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, 2021, I think it was, yeah. So, that is an awful long time. So there's a lot of pressure on him as well, because he's defending the ranking money from 2 years ago. But, I mean, he can go out there and average 96 all 3 games, and that is a good average. But against these guys now, that doesn't justify the 1-8 price.
You're vulnerable. You are vulnerable.
Absolutely, yeah. So if there is any value, it's trying to get a double on Van Veen and Searle to both go through.
I'm sure there will be some bookies as well that will do a market for predicting the two to go through, but I've not seen any arise yet. But if you keep your eyes peeled, they normally come up, the day before or so. Yeah, so that's worth a look.
And if we go to the next group, I mean, we mentioned Group C being the group of death. I mean, this is just awful as well, isn't it? Peter Wright, Dave Chisnell, Stephen Bunton, and Stewie Bunce. I mean, if you don't know Stewie Bunce, by the way, he plays in the CDC, and him and Peter Wright, I mean, if you think Peter Wright's wacky, I mean, this is just going to be unbelievable. Who's going to out-wacky each other? It's going to be absolutely fantastic to watch. Peter Wright. Wow, I mean, what do you say about Peter Wright? He's had a horrendous 2023 by his very, very high standards. And I'm talking about the 2023 major winner, Peter Wright, because he got back to winning ways at the European Championship by lifting the European Championship, beat James Wade in the final. He hammered Michael Smith. I think he was about, 8-0 up on Michael Smith? And he was still switching his darts throughout it. He had, he was chucking with Phil Taylor darts, the Michael Van Gerwen darts. I think it was with the gold darts. And it's easy to forget, but it was 5-all with Gabriel Clemens, and he was stranded on 4-4-1 with Clemens on 1-8-1, with Clemens throwing first in the leg. And he comes through that, and then he didn't really look like losing any of the game, to be honest. I mean, he was fantastic. And I think he's got the confidence back. He's always been a super confident character on the hockey, but I just think a few of the things he was saying earlier on in the year, I was getting a little bit concerned about where his mindset was. But he's back. He's not putting in those monster averages that he was, but he was struggling to get over a 92, 93 average. But at 3-10. I still want to see a little bit more to justify that price, especially with the others in this group, because you've got Dave Chisnell, who won yet another title last week. He won the final Players' Championship ever at the Barnsley Metrodome. Rest in peace, Barnsley Metrodome. What an iconic place that was. mean, that takes his title all up to 5 titles in 2023. I mean, if you're looking for a Premier League pick, it's very difficult to ignore someone who's won 5 titles, 3 of them on stage as well, 3 of them on the Euro Tour. He was a number 1 seed headed into the European Championship. You know, he's great to watch. He's hugely popular, can hit 180s for fun. I do think Dave Chisnall is one deep TV run away from getting in the Premier League, and this really could be the tournament. And then you've got Stephen Bunting at 4-6, who is playing, and he says this himself, the best start of his career, even better than when he won Lakeside, even better than when he won the Masters without dropping a single set. He's just, I mean, he's changed his darts. He's gone from 12 grams to 16 grams, and he just seems to have a lot more control over it. And I think he's always been a confidence player, Stephen Bunting. And I think when he wasn't playing well, it really, really affected him. But equally, now that he's playing so well, he just feels like he can do everything. I believe Stephen Bunting is looking at this group and thinking, I know that I'm through. I just think he's got that strong mentality as well. And then you got Story Bunce there right on the end at 7-1. Don't write him off. He's a really good player. We've seen that in the CDC. He's a confident player, a bit like Peter Wright. You can't wear what he does without being confident. In this format, if one of these guys are off, he could punish. But it's so difficult to call because Peter Wright kicks off favourite, but Dave Chisnall, 5 titles this year. Stephen Bunting playing the best darts he's ever played. Wow.
Yeah, this is my group of death. I think, the caliber of player in Group C, arguably, as strong or stronger in terms of the trio at the top. But I just think, like, in terms of form, you've got the guy coming in who's won, the last major. You've got the guy coming in who's absolutely dominated the Pro Tour this year. And you've got one of the guys who's, as you said, playing the darts of his life and one of the form players on the tour. So, and then what a wild card Bunce is as well. I mean, if you look at the averages he produced to get here, he was far and away the best out of those CDC averages. He was averaging like 8 or 9 points more than everybody else, like mid to high 90s in most of his games. Like, that will test anybody if he can play like that. The big question will be, how will he handle, the Grand Slam of Darts, the TV cameras, the interviews. There's going to be a lot of interest around him. He's got to do his walk on, and the comparisons with Wright. There's going to be a lot of new stuff for Sto Bunce, but he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that's going to be sort of taken aback by that. I think he'll quite enjoy it. I did watch an interview with him. He says he has absolutely no intention of coming over to the UK and pursuing a tour card or anything. So, it's going to just be fleeting appearances here, World Championships, stuff like that. And, we've seen it in the past with Danny Baggish and similar players, where when they come over for these one-off appearances and they really enjoy it and they really enjoy testing themselves against the big names. So he's one of the outsiders that I would be more interested in, but in a similar respect to Barry Van Peer, could have had an easier draw. Out of the big three, I find it difficult to call. The only thing I would say is I sometimes worry about Dave Chisnall over very, very short formats. He does hit the panic button sometimes if he doesn't get away quick. If you're a Chisnall backer in a first to 5, you want to see him hit a 140 or 180 in that first leg, just to settle you down, or it's going to be a bit of a scrap and a bit of a mess. But he's one of these players who, as the format gets longer and longer, he just settles more and more and more, because his game does have peaks and troughs, but his peaks are as good as anyone's peaks. So, I'd be a little bit worried about Chizzy at the short format and just the way that the other two are playing. Of course, Peter Wright looks like he's back, but you never want to get too confident with Peter Wright, that he could easily turn up at the next tournament and be dreadful again. So, the only thing that makes me think he won't is the fact that he generally raises his game for the majors, doesn't he? Let's be honest. And he's never won this event. It's one of the only majors he hasn't won. 3-time finalists, lost all 3, one to Van Gerwen and twice to Gerwyn Price. So I'm sure he would love to put that right. Stephen Bunting, without leaping too far ahead, I think at the prices in the outright market, it might be worth a little tickle, but I'm sure we'll come on to that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of pressure on Peter Wright to do well in this tournament as well. I mean, he sort of alleviated the pressure by getting 100 grand for winning the European Championship, but he made the final of this 2 years ago, so he's defending that prize money. He also won the Players' Championship finals, £100,000. He's not in the Players' Championship finals in Minehead. at the end of November, so he's not going to recoup any of that. So he could do with a deep run in this tournament. If we look at Group F now, I mean, I don't want to sound disrespectful, but on paper, it's not the group that gets your juices flowing, shall we say?
It's the worst group by a mile. I'll say it.
Okay, you said it. There we are.
I've said it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, his final appearance on the show.
I like these guys. I like all of them, but you just have to be honest, don't you? Compared to the other 7.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen a lot of people say that this is arguably the best Grand Slam draw that there's ever been. So it's not even an insult to the guys. It's just littered with quality. Danny Noppert, he kicks off big favourite. He had a great one at the European Championship, a great comeback against Gary Price. I think he was 7-0 down, and then won 10 out of the next 11 legs. Had to come through the qualifiers, and I know we mentioned it at the top of the show. He comes through the qualifiers, and then is a seed. It's horrendous decision. They need to change how the Grand Slam works. Let's be honest, but whatever. Andrew Gilding, of course, the UK Open champion. He comes in as second favourite. Difficult one to talk about Andrew Gilding because it feels very much like an Andrew Gilding season. He's not really done much, apart from he did win that big one against Michael van Gerwen at the UK Open, and then he somehow beat Rob Cross and Gary Anderson at World Grand Prix. And I spoke to Andrew Gilding. Believe me, he does not know how he did that either. Nobody knows how he did that. He doesn't know how he did it, but he just gets on with it. I've never seen Andrew Gilding flustered. If he's not playing well, I don't think it's because of the occasion as opponent or whatever. He just cracks on with it. He's experienced in this tournament. I do hope we get another Andrew Gilding forced hug. I think Glenn Durrant is still having nightmares about that. And then you look at Brendan Dolan, who, again, I think he will say this himself, is quite a predictable player. He knows what he can do. He's never going to challenge for the majors at the end of the tournaments. Although he's a former major finalist, but he can pull off huge shots. He can beat he's not going to be scared of anyone. He beat Michael van Gerwen in the first round of World Match Play. I think when you look at the form of Andrew Gilding, 4-5 for Brendan Dolan, I quite like that, to be honest. And then you've got Haruki Muromatsu. Apologies for that because I've butchered that. Who, if you don't know him, don't completely write him off. He's got World Championship experience. He's got World Cup experience. He's a quality player. A lot of these Asian guys, just because you don't see him, they are quality players. It's just they don't commit to the tour because it's a huge commitment because they've got to either you can't really travel, you can't commute, so you have to relocate, leave your family behind. And they play a lot of soft tip over there, which is very, very lucrative. So a lot of these guys, they don't need to relocate, but it doesn't mean that they're not a quality player. So 11-2 in this group, maybe it's worth 50p. It is an open group. You expect Danny Noppert to come through, but 1-6, I certainly won't be putting any money on it.
Yeah, just on Muromatsu, won the Asian Tour to qualify for this and will also be at the Worlds. As you say, he's appeared there a few times, although he's not been there for a little while. One of the more experienced Asian players on the circuit. He's got Players' Championship experience under his belt as well, although he didn't have much success when he did have that season playing that. Yeah, I mean, the game that he won to qualify, he played a guy, Sorsing, I think he was called, and the standard was really high. I actually watched the game back, and it was... he was over a long format of 13, 15 legs. He was averaging in the low to mid 90s. So, he's no mug. It'll just be how he handles the occasion, as we say, with all these sort of like lesser exposed players. I just want to stress when I say this is the worst group, I don't mean it with any disrespect to the players. I only mean it from the perspective of a viewer where I'm looking at it and I'm amazed if Danny Noppert doesn't win this group. And I'm amazed if Andrew Gilding doesn't go in behind him in second, to be honest, just because, Gilding and Dolan there, you would say that they're fighting for second spot on the form that we've seen. And I think Gilding's shown more than Brendan this year, generally speaking. And I expect him to win that. So I think this is the only group where I look at it and I think the odds there, 1, 2, 3, 4, that is the order that they're almost certainly going to finish in. Obviously, it's short format, so that almost certainly is a ridiculous thing to say. But that's just how I felt when I'm looking at it as a viewer. And, we talk about the way that the Grand Slam field is worked out. You're always going to have one group that doesn't quite live up to the others. And what it does present, it presents a great opportunity for Danny Noppert to get through as a group winner and, potentially have a decent run here, which would be a massive bonus for him, given he only qualified through the two-card qualifier. To get through in that method and then go on a deep run, it's like bonus money, isn't it, for these guys, really? Yeah. So, and Danny up to number 9 in the world now. So that's unbelievable, really, isn't it? Fantastic for him, and a very likable player, I think.
I think it's safe to say as well that this could be the slowest group as well.
100%,
all quite methodical players, which will be interesting actually, because everyone will be playing at their own pace. So that might produce quality. We will see. What will produce quality is this group. Wow, wow, wow. We have Michael Van Gerwen, Rob Cross, Martijn Kleermaker, and Fallon Sherrick. Fallon Sherrick 4-1. She was 11-1 yesterday. So the odds makers have thought, we made a mistake here. Obviously, Michael Van Gerwen kicks off favourite for this group. Huge, huge favourite. Not worth a penny of anyone's money, because even though I expect him to win the group, it's just pointless over this format. He didn't play too well at the European Championship. He was in a bit of trouble in all of his games, to be honest with you there. And then you look at Rob Cross, 2-9, who he's played. I think he's one of these players, Rob Cross, who he sort of goes under the radar a bit now. Strange to say about 2-time European champion, world match play champion, but I don't know. He doesn't really get spoken about, but I think this year he's produced some real quality displays. So he also won on the European Tour as well, finally. Don't write off Rob Cross from going deep in this tournament. Obviously, you expect him to come through the group. Martijn Kleermaker, who's not really had a good year at all. He came through the qualifiers. He's going to be exciting to watch. He's really, really quick play. I'd say he's quicker than Ricky Evans. He's arguably one of the quickest players on the planet, maybe up there with a Dan Lauby. And then at 4-1 there, Fallon Sherrick. Michael Van Gerwen. Who's looking forward to that? We've seen Fallon Sherrick in the Grand Slam before. She beat
Sky Sports are looking forward to it, I'll tell you that.
What was that?
Sky Sports will be looking forward to it. There'll be montages everywhere.
You remember the World Championship? Every single time there was a montage. But I think Fallon really could give Sky an excuse to make more montages. I mean, at the Grand Slam a few years ago, she took out at 170 to beat Gabrielle Clemens. She needed to take that out as well. And then she beat Mensah Suljovic again, Paul Mensah Suljovic, and then the best game of her career, in my opinion. Quarterfinal against Peter Wright. 16-13 to Peter Wright, averaged 97 over 29 legs. Wow. She's got the quality. And if you're looking at this format, you're looking at experience in this format. You talk to Michael Van Gerwen, you talk to Rob Cross, they'll tell you, I hate this format. It's stupid. It's short. I hate it. You talk to Fallon Sherrick, who's played this sort of format in the Modus League, played this sort of format in the Women's Series. This is her bread and butter. We've seen enough of Fallon Sherrick now to know that high 90s, even a ton plus average in this format, she can do that. And that can worry anyone. That could put Michael Van Gerwen in trouble. So, whereas on paper, Michael Van Gerwen and Rob Cross are the two heavy favourites, and I do believe those two will come through. I think Van Gerwen, weird to say about someone like Van Gerwen, he can panic a bit. I think under the pressure. I think maybe with it being a group stage format, maybe not so much, because he knows that if he does lose a match, then he's got 2 other chances. But yeah, this isn't as easy as to predict as I think it might initially look.
Yeah, I'd go with that. I'd definitely go with that. Fallon Sherrick, whatever you think of how she's got in this, whatever you think of how Sky have treated her in her career today, you cannot deny that this format and this tournament is made for her, really. Just for all the reasons that you've already listed, the short format, the fact she's been there and done it before, that the crowd are going to play a factor, as they always do when the female players play. But we've seen that other female players have struggled to kind of harness that support and produce their best starts. Whereas for Fallon, I often think that she needs that to produce her best starts. And, that Grand Slam run that you talk about, where some of the results there, I mean, beating Mike Dedeker 5-0, because she lost her opening group game to Peter Wright 5-1 in that tournament. And, everyone anyone with a brain in their head would have said she was gone at that moment. To then beat Mike Dedeker 5-0, got her leg difference back to a competitive point, and then she beats Gabrielle Clemens, and then she beats Mensa Sulovic in a knockout game, and then she takes Wright over 29 legs, as you say. It's just, that was as good as she's been. And, we're going to talk about Bo Greaves in a minute. Since Bo Greaves came on the scene in the PDC, Fallon has had to take a back seat at times. But I think this is a great opportunity for her to remind everybody of the quality that she has. It sounds funny to say this. I would quite fancy Martijn Kleemaker to beat one of Rob Cross or Michael van Gerwen over 5 legs. But I think he could definitely lose to Fallon Sherrock over 5 legs, because I think, just the thing I said about mindset earlier on in the video, players put pressure on themselves in certain games. This is a game I've got to win. Martijn will be looking at Fallon Sherrock thinking, if I'm going to get through this group, I've got to win this and hopefully nick one of the other two. And then when you start to overlook a game like that or presume that you're going to win it, that's when you have the problems. So, yeah, I would not be surprised at all to see Sherrock get at least one win in this group. And I think she's a dangerous runner in this group. But look, the odds are fair, aren't they? When all's said and done, we'd be surprised if Van Gerwen and Cross didn't come through it. Rob Cross, you're right in what you're saying, underrated. I mean, he's playing as good as pretty much anyone outside of the big three over the course of this year, but hasn't maybe got as many glamorous results to back it up. But one of these days, Rob Cross is just going to pop up and comfortably win a major, and everyone's going to go, oh, well, he has been playing pretty well for the last year. It won't be a surprise to anyone who watches a lot of darts, but it's just guessing when that's going to be, isn't it? It's a difficult bit, but I could see the argument for having a little go on Sherrock to come through this group with the old chaos of the crowd and rising to the occasion. I'm looking forward to watching it myself. I don't know if I'll quite get there in terms of backing her, but I'll definitely be looking forward to watching her games.
She's also coming into this tournament in great form as well. I mean, when Bo Greaves made her debut on the women's series, she was hoovering up every single title. But if you look at the past few, it's Fallon Sherrock who's been taking the lion's share of the women's series titles. So what a time to hit some form. And speaking of Bo Greaves, we're heading to our final group. We won't be seeing her at the PDC World Championship, but we will be seeing her at the Grand Slam. She's 11-2 in this group, Bo Greaves. She's in the group with Ricardo Pietreczko, Damon Heta, and Nathan Aspinall. And this is a hard group to predict. Nathan Aspinall is the World Match Play champion. It's pretty much the only thing he's done this year, to be honest with you. He has been woeful. And I don't use that word lightly. He has been woeful since winning that World Match Play. He's missed out on the Players' Championship finals, which, to be fair, I don't think his focus was on it too much. I think when he saw that he wasn't in the race, I think he sort of took his foot off the gas. I spoke to him at the European Championship. He said that his wife's birthday is always, he's always in my head for his wife's birthday. So now he's taking it to Chester. He offered her Dubai. She wanted Chester. So Nathan Aspinall doesn't know why either. He's a stump to everybody else. But yeah, his form has not been good. You can't beat around the bush. But he is still the World Match Play champion. Damon Heta, I'm just waiting for it to happen on TV. I really, really am, because we know the quality of player that he is. He's someone who, you will never be surprised if he wins any title on the floor. He's not really. He has been better on TV. I think it with the quarterfinal of the World Match Play, or was it the semi? I think it was the quarterfinal, but whatever it was, he is doing better on TV. But again, someone of his quality, what he can do, you just feel like he can do more. And he is a really, really good first start merchant as well. If his start is in the top of that 60 bed, it's just a 180 all day long. Ricardo Pietreczko, been a bit of a breakout year for him. He's such a young guy, but he's really, really good. He's had deep runs on the floor. He won the final European tour of the season. Lost to Michael van Gerwen in the European Championship, but pushed him. He really, really did push him. He showed no fear. And then, we talked about Bo Greaves not coming into this in the best of form, to be honest with you. Probably a bit disappointed that she had to choose between the PDC World Championship and the WDF World Championship. When you're thinking that you're going to be able to compete in both and you have to choose it, it's not good. And then she's used to, she holds herself to high standards. She's used to taking all of the women's series titles, every single one. And Fallon Sherrick has been taking the lion's share of those recently. And I do think, I know we've not seen her much on the PDC stage, but I do feel like she's still taking a bit of time just to get used to everything, all the hype, all the cameras, competing with the men, because that is a thing, as much as we want to see it as dart player versus dart player, man versus woman in darts, is still a thing. It is still a news story, and that comes with its own pressure. But if Ball Greaves can settle, we could see 105 average. She's done it before in the women's series multiple times. If she can settle, if she can relax, she could get through this group pretty easily. But I don't think she will. I don't think she will relax, and it's unfortunate. But if she can just even get to a point where you're putting in decent averages, Aspinall, Petrechko, Heta, 3 opportunities there.
Yeah, opportunities, and it just depends which way you fill your glass, really, doesn't it? Because you could also look at them 3 and say, well, they're 3 players that will punish her if she's not at her very best. So it's a difficult old group to call. I think Bo Greaves, is more of a wild card than say a Nathan Rafferty or a Nathan Gervin, because we know that she has this huge ceiling. You also have to add in the factor that I mentioned before about playing the woman, and a lot of the guys will put pressure on themselves for that game. I mean, Damon, as much as I think he's an absolute multiple major winner in weighting, we've seen him put pressure on himself on TV anyway. So, adding Bo Greaves and a crowd, and it could be a problem. Although I'm hoping that, of what we've seen of him this year on the Euro Tour, that he'll embrace any stick that he gets and stuff, and it might actually help him settle a bit better. Really intrigued to see what we get from Bo, because she's been phenomenal for 18 months, but as you quite rightly point out, just the last 3 months, just a little bit concerning is the word I would use. If we could see one game of her here out of the 3 where she produces her best, that would be big progress for me. And she can come away with her head held high. If she can get up towards a ton average for one of these best of 9s, then that'll be fantastic, and it'll give us something to build on going forward. For what it's worth, it's probably another video, but I don't think it's a disgrace that the PDC made a choose between WDF and PDC. Yeah. It's just holding back women's dart even more, isn't it? I mean, we all know how good Bo is. It's a disgrace that she can't play in the Worlds, but it is what it is, and I respect her choice for going and trying to defend her title. Good luck to her. The other 3, very difficult to call. I mean, on the form of the floor this season, you could easily make a case for Heta and Pietreczko going through and Aspinall going out. But every time I try and take on Nathan Aspinall in TV events, he seems to sort of like find his best again. So I've learned the hard way. Don't write off Nathan Aspinall easily. But I wouldn't be rushing to back him either. Probably just a watching brief on this group for me. But I think some interesting games for sure ahead. Pietreczko, like you say, I've just been so impressed with his bottle. In the big moments, like, it's one thing having the quality to compete with these guys, but normally when you get into the back end of games and you're playing a big hitter, that's when you see a wobble, and he just doesn't seem to have that in him. And that's a really promising trait for the rest of his career to hold himself together so well.
Yeah, and I think the rest of the tour as well is taking notice. I remember when I was interviewing the European Championship, Luke Humphries, and I had Luke Humphries in front of me, and behind us was a TV. It was Van Geuren and Pietreczko. And just go back and watch that interview. He can't take his eyes off the match. People are taking notice of Ricardo Pietreczko, and that they're looking at his progress, because he's a dangerous player, and we've seen that he's beating the big guys, Peter Wright, Michael Van Geuren. Like you said, he's such a young guy, and he comes across as a young guy as well. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but you look at Gian Van Veen. He's just got that maturity. He just walks with confidence. I don't get that from Pietreczko. He does come across as a kid, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, because even when he comes across like that, it doesn't seem to affect him on the board. This could be a really, really interesting group. You said that you won't want to back Nathan Aspinall in this group based on his form, but who will you back for the tournament? Those are some of the odds there. Gavin Price, he owns this tournament. He goes off favourite. I wouldn't agree with that. And I know he's done well in this tournament. He's obviously won it 3 times, but he's not won a ranking major in two years now. His performances aren't at the level they used to be, which, to be fair, he had set himself an exceptionally high bar. Van Gerwen there, second favourite, 9-2. Not great at the European Championship, but again, even though there's more of a spread of majors now, he is still the one with the most. He's still the one who wins the most. And if you ask a lot of guys, he is still the man to beat. And this this is also a Sky tournament as well. And I do think I'm going to lose my voice in a minute. Let's have some water. I do actually think it makes a difference to Sky and ITV. So the Sky ones just feel, they feel more important. They feel bigger. Michael Van Gerwen's got a point to prove as well. He's won the Premier League, but he would have been disappointed losing the quarterfinal of the World Grand Prix, and of course the World Match Play. Headed into that as defending champion, lost first round to Brendan Dolan, and then you got Luke Humphries, who, you put him in that category with Price and Van Gerwen. I agree. He is part of the elite. He is just head and shoulders above, with those two, head and shoulders above everybody else. He's got the scoring power. He's got the finishing. He's got the confidence. He's got the mental. He's got absolutely everything. This is the guy who is going to be world number 1. He's going to win so many majors. He's going to win multiple world championships. I think he could do everything in this game. 12-1 for the defending champion and the world champion, Michael Smith. Not played the best shit, but 12-1. I don't know.
I'm not going to lie. Out of the top, I don't normally play at the top of the market, as people will know. But I think out of those, those first 5, Michael Smith 12-1, it leaped off the page a bit for me. I couldn't quite believe he was that big. I mean, yeah, like you said, reigning champ. And this proved to be a really good lead into the Worlds for him as well, didn't it? So I'm sure he's thinking the same again this year. If I have a good Grand Slam, it sets me up and stuff. And I know he was talking, I know him and Nathan Aspinall have been saying they need to get the practice in and stuff. And I thought, Michael, obviously, we talk about him being well beaten by Peter Wright, but prior to that game, he'd shown some decent form. And you just, you're expecting him, we expect him to get through his group. He's got a pretty reasonable draw. Who's going to want to play him in the knockouts, So I definitely think that 12-1 is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he's got new darts. He keeps saying that, his poor form isn't down to the new darts. But, if you've been throwing a dart for so long and all of a sudden you change, it is different. And the dart looks a lot different as well. Now, I think where he grips it on the top, where he puts his thumb, from what I know, that was the important thing from him. He said to his manufacturers, I need that the same. Do what you want with the rest. And I spoke to Wayne Mardle in Leicester. He says that the dart goes into the board a lot differently. So yeah, but if I think this also, because of the format, after you get past that short format, this is a tournament where you can almost play yourself into form because it's such a long format.
Yeah, definitely.
When we look at the other odds there, 12-1 for Peter Wright, a lot shorter than what we've seen recently because of that European Championship win. No surprise to see my pick there, Gary Anderson. How I would love for him to win this tournament. I actually think he would probably want it more than the World Championship. He loves this tournament. It's always nice to see emotion from Gary Anderson, to see that he actually cares about it, and he does care about this tournament. I feel like maybe in some tournaments that maybe he's felt a little bit too much pressure because he does really want to win it, but in previous years he's not been in the form. Or recent years not been in the form like he is. So 16-1, maybe from what he's done in recent years, it's a bit too short for some people. But look at his averages. I'm going to pick some other ones.
It's not too short for me. I am, putting up Gary as my nap as well. So we've got an agreement there. Don't know if that bodes well or not, but yeah, we're in agreement there. I will just. I've noticed my laptop battery is extremely low. I'm probably not going to get up to the charger in time. So while I'm still here and still kicking, I'll tell you, I've gone for Gary Anderson and another man that you've got on the screen there, Stephen Bunting.
I knew you were going to go with Bunting.
Managed to get a bit of a bigger price on him as well. It's just the form of him, I know he's got a tough group, but I just feel like, you talk about playing yourself into the form. And like even the way he went out in the European Championship what a fantastic game that was with Christobi. They're both playing like absolutely lights out darts, and I just couldn't take my eyes off.
9.18 or something.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous, like, you know, possibly game of the tournament. And you know, nothing lost in defeat there for me there. So I think Anderson and Bunting, my two selections. If I do disappear, you know what's happened, but I'm happy to hang around till the bitter end.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I mean, I want Anderson to win, and you know, maybe I'm going to choose him as my winner. Maybe a tiny bit of bias there, but yes, Stephen Bunting. I think he's 50-1 because number one, he's not won a PDC major, but also he is in a tough group. But if he gets through that group, like we both said, he's playing the best darts of his career. We'll wrap that up because I don't want you to disappear on me. But guys, do drop your thoughts in the comments below. It is going to be an absolutely fantastic tournament. I think it's so wide open. There's so many guys who are coming into this in such good form. Also, the group stages, we always lose some big names as well. There's always some dark horses that come through. Don't forget, head over to our Twitter at dartsnow_ to win a set of Gary Anderson darts. Keep an eye on all of our videos at the Grand Slam, Peter Wright darts. We will be giving away European World Championship. Believe me, something absolutely epic planned. Matt, once again, thank you for joining me, and I'm glad that your battery survived.
I made it.